You've noticed them. The guy at work who never plays office politics but somehow commands respect. The person who operates alone, refuses to follow the crowd, yet achieves more than those desperately climbing the ladder. They're not trying to impress anyone. They don't need validation, and somehow that makes them more powerful than everyone fighting for attention. This is the Sigma male. Not a leader, not a follower, something else entirely. And if you understand Machiavelli's principles, you'll see why they always win the psychological game. Because while everyone else is playing checkers, fighting for status and approval, the Sigma is playing chess. Strategic, independent, invisible until they strike. And by the time you realize what happened, they've already won. Today, I'm going to reveal why Sigma males embody Machiavellian power strategies better than any other archetype. Not because they're superior, but because they understand something most people refuse to accept. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Real power moves in silence. Real influence doesn't need an audience, and the person who needs nothing from you has everything over you. This video will show you the exact psychological strategies Sigma males use that Machiavelli identified 500 years ago. You'll understand why they frustrate alpha males, confuse social hierarchies, and succeed without playing the traditional game. Whether you identify as Sigma or you're dealing with one, understanding these strategies changes everything. Let's begin with Machiavellian power strategies. Before we dive in, understand what a Sigma male actually is. Not the Andrew Tate caricature, not the internet meme, the real pattern. A Sigma operates outside traditional social hierarchies. They don't fight for the top position like alphas. They don't accept a subordinate position like betas. They reject the hierarchy entirely and build power independently. They're not antisocial, they're selectively social. They don't hate people. They just refuse to play status games. Machiavelli would have recognized this pattern immediately. In The Prince, he distinguished between different types of power seekers. Some fight for the throne, some serve the throne. But the most dangerous, he noted, were those who built parallel power structures that didn't depend on existing hierarchies. They were harder to control because they wanted nothing from the system. And people who want nothing from you are impossible to manipulate. The Sigma embodies Machiavellian independence. They've read the game and decided not to play it the conventional way. Not because they can't compete, because they've calculated that the conventional game is rigged, exhausting, and ultimately not worth winning. So they build their own game. And that's where the power comes from. Before we continue, if you want to master Machiavellian power strategies that most people never learn, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. I break down power dynamics, strategic thinking, and the real rules of influence every week. And leave a comment telling me, are you Sigma or have you encountered one? I want to know what patterns you've observed. This community learns by identifying these dynamics in action. Now let's reveal why Sigma males always win the psychological game. The first strategy is independence as power. Machiavelli wrote that the one who depends on others is never secure. The Sigma takes this to its logical conclusion. They build their entire life around not needing anyone, not needing approval, not needing validation, not needing the system to work. This isn't loneliness. This is strategic autonomy. And it's the foundation of everything else. Watch what happens when someone doesn't need you. You lose all leverage over them. You can't manipulate them with social pressure because they don't care about social standing. You can't bribe them with status because they reject the status game. You can't threaten them with exclusion because they're already operating independently. This creates an asymmetry of power. They have nothing you can take away, but you still want something from them. Respect, acknowledgement, competition. That asymmetry makes them psychologically dominant without effort. The alpha fights for the top of the hierarchy. This creates dependency. They need others to acknowledge their position. The beta accepts their position in the hierarchy. This creates dependency. They need the structure to function. The sigma rejects the hierarchy. This creates independence. They need nothing from the system. And Machiavelli understood that the person who needs nothing cannot be controlled. Most men spend their entire lives seeking validation from others. The sigma has eliminated that need. Not through arrogance, through self-sufficiency. They've built their validation internally. They've created their own metrics of success. They've made themselves psychologically independent. And that independence is magnetic. People are drawn to those who don't need them because it's so rare. Here's the tactical reality. Dependency is weakness. The moment you need approval, you've handed someone power over you. The sigma has looked at every form of social dependency, status, approval, belonging, validation, and systematically eliminated it. They've made themselves an island, and islands can't be invaded if you can't reach them. This doesn't mean the sigma has no relationships. It means their relationships are chosen, not needed. They connect because they want to, not because they have to. And that makes every connection genuine rather than strategic. Paradoxically, by not needing people, they form better relationships with the people they choose to include. The second strategy is strategic invisibility. Machiavelli emphasized that appearing is more important than being, but he also noted that sometimes the most powerful move is to not appear at all. The sigma understands this perfectly. They operate below the radar. They don't seek attention. They don't broadcast their wins. They don't engage in the constant status signaling that dominates most social environments, and this invisibility is a weapon. When you're invisible, people underestimate you. They don't see you as competition. They don't prepare defenses against you. They reveal information they wouldn't share with someone they viewed as a threat. By the time they realize you're a player in the game, you've already made your moves. The alpha needs to be seen. Their power comes from visibility, dominance displays, public victories. This makes them a target. Everyone knows where they stand. Everyone can prepare counter moves. The sigma operates in shadows. You don't know what they're planning. You don't know what resources they have. You don't know when they'll make a move. Machiavelli watched military commanders who announced their strategies publicly for honor. They lost. He watched commanders who moved silently and struck unexpectedly. They won. The sigma applies this principle to social dynamics. Don't announce your goals. Don't broadcast your strategies. Don't make yourself a target. Just execute. Then, when results become visible, it's already too late for others to stop you. Think about your workplace. The alpha is in every meeting, dominating conversations, making sure everyone knows their achievements. Everyone sees them coming. Everyone can form alliances against them. Everyone can undermine them politically. The sigma is quiet in meetings. They do exceptional work alone. They don't compete for airtime. Then they deliver results that speak louder than any self-promotion. By the time leadership notices them, they've already built an undeniable track record. This is strategic invisibility as power. You're not hiding, you're not afraid. You're just not giving others the information they need to compete with you effectively. You're removing yourself as a target while still playing the game. And when you strike, it's from an angle no one was watching. The alpha plays poker with their cards facing outward. The sigma plays with their cards hidden. Guess who wins more hands? Strategic invisibility also preserves energy. The alpha burns massive energy on displays, status maintenance, defending their position. The sigma saves that energy for actual productive work. While alphas are managing their image, sigmas are building their reality. The third strategy is emotional detachment as armor. Machiavelli observed that rulers who became emotionally invested in outcomes made poor decisions. Fear, hope, anger, pride all cloud judgment. The sigma has mastered emotional regulation in a way that gives them massive strategic advantage. They care about outcomes, but they're not emotionally attached to them. This creates psychological resilience that others can't match. Watch what happens when someone tries to manipulate a sigma emotionally. Guilt trips don't work because the sigma doesn't feel obligated by social pressure. Anger doesn't provoke them because they don't take things personally. Flattery doesn't influence them because they don't need external validation. Threats don't intimidate them because they've already accepted worst-case scenarios. This emotional detachment makes them nearly impossible to control through the normal social manipulation tactics that work on everyone else. The alpha is emotionally reactive. Challenge their status and they respond aggressively. Threaten their position and they feel fear. This reactivity is predictable. If you know what triggers them, you can control them. The sigma doesn't have reliable triggers. They've disconnected emotional response from external stimuli. Not because they're cold, because they've trained themselves to choose their responses rather than reacting automatically. This is Machiavellian emotional intelligence. He wrote that a prince should appear to have good qualities but be willing to act against them when necessary. The sigma takes this further. They genuinely cultivate inner calm so that external chaos doesn't disturb their decision-making. They're not pretending to be unaffected. They've actually made themselves unaffected. Think about a crisis at work. The alpha panics because their status is threatened. The beta panics because the structure is collapsing. The sigma assesses the situation calmly, identifies the optimal response, and executes without emotional interference. This doesn't mean they don't feel emotions. It means emotions inform their decisions without controlling them. They've created space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies their power. Emotional detachment also prevents manipulation through relationship leverage. Most people can be controlled through their attachments. Threaten someone they love and they'll comply. Threaten something they've built and they'll compromise. The sigma has fewer attachments that can be used as leverage, not because they're incapable of love or connection, because they've structured their life so that no single point of failure exists. This is Machiavellian risk management applied to emotions. Don't create vulnerabilities that enemies can exploit. Don't become so attached to anything that losing it destroys you. Maintain emotional sovereignty. And if that sounds harsh, remember that Machiavelli wasn't writing about ideal worlds. He was writing about survival in hostile environments. The sigma has recognized that the social world is hostile, and they've adapted accordingly. The fourth strategy is selective engagement. Machiavelli wrote about knowing when to fight and when to avoid battle. The sigma has mastered this completely. They don't engage in every conflict. They don't respond to every challenge. They don't compete in every arena. They choose their battles with surgical precision, and they only fight when they've already calculated they'll win. The alpha feels compelled to respond to every challenge. Someone questions their authority, and they must reassert it. Someone competes with them, and they must prove dominance. This creates exhaustion and constant conflict. The sigma ignores most challenges. Someone talks badly about them? They don't care. Someone tries to compete? They don't engage. Someone questions their competence? They let results speak. This selective engagement preserves energy and maintains psychological advantage. By not engaging, the sigma frustrates opponents. People who want to fight need an opponent. Remove yourself from the fight and they're punching air. They escalate trying to get a response. You remain calm. They look unhinged. You look composed. They've lost the psychological game without you throwing a single punch. Machiavelli understood this principle in warfare. He wrote that sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemy exhaust themselves attacking a position you're not defending. The sigma applies this to social dynamics. Let the alphas fight each other for status. Let the betas compete for scraps. You're playing a different game entirely. Here's the selective engagement formula. Only compete in arenas where you have unfair advantage. Only fight battles where victory serves your strategic goals. Only respond to challenges from people whose opinion actually matters. Everything else is ignored. Not because you're afraid, because it's strategically irrelevant. Think about social media drama. The alpha is in every argument, defending their position, attacking critics, proving they're right. The sigma posts valuable content and ignores all comments that aren't constructive. They're not reading the hate. They're not responding to provocation. They're not wasting energy on people who don't matter. This creates a perception of confidence that actually builds more influence than engaging ever could. Selective engagement also means choosing when to reveal your capabilities. The sigma doesn't show everything they can do. They reveal competence strategically, when it serves a purpose. They keep capabilities hidden until deployment creates maximum impact. This prevents others from preparing counter-strategies and maintains the advantage of surprise. The alpha shows everything immediately, needing validation for every skill. The sigma reveals nothing until the moment it creates decisive advantage. The fifth strategy is building parallel power structures. This is perhaps the most Machiavellian strategy the sigma employs. Instead of competing within existing hierarchies, they build their own. They create alternative paths to resources, influence, and success that don't require permission from traditional gatekeepers. This is how they win without playing the game everyone else is playing. Machiavelli observed that the most dangerous people to existing power structures were those who built independent bases of power. They couldn't be controlled through the normal mechanisms. They didn't need appointments, promotions, or recognition from the establishment. They'd created their own legitimacy. The sigma does this systematically. In a corporate environment, while alphas fight for promotions and betas follow the career path, the sigma might be building side income streams that will eventually make them independent of the company entirely. They're playing a longer game that makes the corporate hierarchy increasingly irrelevant to their life. In social dynamics, while others compete for status within their social circle, the sigma builds multiple independent social circles where they're valued differently. If one group rejects them, they have 3 others. They've eliminated dependency on any single social structure. This is the ultimate application of Machiavelli's principle about not depending on others. Don't just reduce dependency. Build alternative power sources that make you completely independent of any single structure. Then, that structure loses all leverage over you. Think about how most people's power is tied to their job, their social group, their romantic relationship, their geographic location. Lose any of these and they're devastated. The sigma has systematically built redundancy into every area. Multiple income sources, multiple skill sets, multiple social connections, multiple geographic options. They've made themselves resilient to any single point of failure. This parallel power structure building also creates optionality. The sigma always has a plan B, always has an exit, always has alternatives. This means they can walk away from bad situations that others have to tolerate. And the ability to walk away is the ultimate power. If you can leave and be fine, you're negotiating from strength. If you need to stay, you're negotiating from weakness. The modern sigma builds this through entrepreneurship, remote work, location independence, diversified income, varied skill sets, and psychological self-sufficiency. They're making themselves increasingly independent of any single system. And that independence is the ultimate form of power in a world where everyone else is trapped in dependencies they can't escape. The sixth strategy is observation over participation. Machiavelli was a student of human nature. He watched, he analyzed, he understood patterns. The sigma operates the same way. While everyone else is busy performing, the sigma is observing. They're learning everyone's patterns, motivations, weaknesses, and strategies. And that information becomes power. The alpha is always performing. They're too busy being the center of attention to notice what's actually happening around them. The beta is too busy following to develop independent observation. The sigma sits back and watches everything. They notice who responds to flattery, who's insecure about what, who's allied with whom, who's competent versus who's just loud. They're building a psychological map of everyone around them. This observation provides massive strategic advantage. When the sigma does choose to act, they know exactly what will work on whom. They've studied the battlefield while others were too busy fighting to notice the terrain. Machiavelli spent 14 years observing politics before writing The Prince. He wasn't participating in the power struggles. He was watching them, and that observation gave him insights that participants missed because they were too emotionally invested in outcomes. The sigma applies this to every environment. At work, while alphas fight for dominance in meetings, the sigma is observing who actually makes decisions, who has real influence versus title power, what the actual rules are versus the stated rules. They're learning how the game really works while others are playing it blind. In social situations, while everyone else is networking and performing, the sigma is watching group dynamics. Who defers to whom? Who's actually respected versus who's trying to be? What the social rules are? What violations are tolerated and what aren't? They're mapping the invisible structure while others stumble through it. This observation also reveals opportunities others miss. The sigma notices gaps in markets, inefficiencies in organizations, undervalued people and assets. Because they're watching instead of performing, they see what's actually there rather than what people claim is there. Then they exploit those observations strategically. Here's the tactical approach. In any new environment, spend the first period purely observing. Don't try to make an impression. Don't try to establish status. Just watch. Learn the patterns. Understand the dynamics. Map the real power structure. Then, once you understand the game, make your moves with precision. The sigma's observation also extends to self-awareness. They watch themselves. They notice their own patterns, triggers, weaknesses. They're constantly studying their own psychology and improving it. While others are defensive about their flaws, the sigma is cataloging them clinically and developing counter-strategies. This level of self-awareness combined with external observation creates strategic clarity that others can't match. The seventh strategy is timing over effort. Machiavelli understood that success often depends more on timing than ability. He wrote about fortuna, fortune, and how the wise person recognizes when circumstances favor action versus when they favor patience. The sigma has mastered this completely. They don't work harder. They work smarter by timing their moves perfectly. The alpha tries to force outcomes through constant effort and dominance. The beta works steadily following the prescribed path. The sigma waits. They're patient. They're watching for the exact moment when minimal effort creates maximum impact. Then they strike. This isn't laziness. This is efficiency. Machiavelli observed that sometimes a small action at the right moment achieves more than massive effort at the wrong time. The sigma lives this principle. They're not constantly active. They're strategically active. Periods of observation and preparation. Then decisive action when conditions align. Then back to observation. Think about career advancement. The alpha is constantly fighting for visibility, trying to force promotions. The sigma is quietly building capabilities and relationships. Then, when a crisis hits and the organization desperately needs someone with their specific skill set, they step forward. They've been preparing in silence. Now they're essential. One conversation achieves what years of fighting couldn't. This is timing over effort. Or think about investments. Most people buy when everyone's buying and markets are high. The sigma has been observing. They've built cash reserves during good times. When everyone panics and markets crash, they buy assets at massive discounts. They waited for timing. One decision during crisis creates more wealth than years of steady work. The sigma applies this to relationships, career moves, business opportunities, and conflicts. They don't force anything. They prepare. They observe. They wait for the right moment. Then they act with precision. And because the timing is perfect, the effort required is minimal, but the results are massive. This timing-based strategy also means the sigma is comfortable with extended periods of apparent inactivity. Others see them as not trying. They're not inactive. They're waiting. They've identified what they want. They've prepared their capability. Now they're waiting for conditions to align. And when others have exhausted themselves through constant effort, the Sigma is fresh and ready to capitalize on the moment everyone else is too tired to notice. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also wrote that the bold who strike at the wrong time are destroyed. The Sigma understands both parts. Be bold, but only when timing favors success. Otherwise, wait. Patience is not weakness. It's strategic discipline. The eighth and final strategy is outcome independence. This is the ultimate Machiavellian power move and the Sigma's greatest psychological advantage. They care about outcomes, but they're not attached to them. They take action toward goals, but they don't need any specific outcome to happen. This creates a level of psychological freedom that translates directly into power. Machiavelli observed that leaders who became too attached to specific outcomes made desperate decisions. The prince who must win this battle takes reckless risks. The prince who can accept losing this battle to win the war makes strategic decisions. The Sigma has taken this to its logical conclusion. They pursue goals intensely but hold outcomes loosely. They want things to work, but they're fine if they don't. They're playing to win, but they're not destroyed by losing. This outcome independence eliminates the main weapon people use against each other, the threat of withholding desired outcomes. If you don't need me to give you what you want, you can't be controlled by me threatening not to give it. Think about salary negotiations. Most people desperately need the job, so they negotiate from weakness. The Sigma is fine walking away. They've built alternative options. They're willing to not get this job if the terms aren't right. This willingness to walk away is instantly perceived by the employer, and it completely changes the negotiation dynamic. Suddenly, the Sigma has power because they've demonstrated they don't need the outcome. Or think about dating. Most men are outcome dependent. They need the woman to like them. This neediness is repulsive. The Sigma is genuinely indifferent to whether any specific woman likes them. They're interested, they'll take action, but they're completely fine with rejection. This outcome independence is attractive because it signals abundance and self-sufficiency. Same behavior, completely different energy, completely different results. The outcome-independent person wins because they're playing a different game. They're not trying to get specific outcomes. They're taking strategic action and accepting whatever results. If this path doesn't work, they'll try another path. If this opportunity doesn't work, they'll find another opportunity. If this person doesn't work, they'll meet another person. This removes the emotional devastation that stops most people. They're not crushed by failure because they weren't attached to success. They're genuinely okay either way. Machiavelli would recognize this as the ultimate form of virtù, the ability to act effectively regardless of fortuna. You can't control outcomes. Markets crash. People betray you. Plans fail. The outcome-dependent person is destroyed by these events. The outcome-independent person adapts and continues. Here's how the Sigma builds this. They create multiple paths to every goal. They develop psychological acceptance of all possible outcomes. They practice non-attachment while maintaining effort. And they build self-worth independent of external results. The paradox is that outcome independence often leads to better outcomes because you're making decisions from strategic clarity rather than desperate need. These are the 8 Machiavellian power strategies that explain why Sigma males always win the psychological game. Not because they're better humans, because they've understood how power actually works and structured their entire approach around those realities. Independence as power, strategic invisibility, emotional detachment, selective engagement, parallel power structures, observation over participation, timing over effort, outcome independence. Each strategy builds on Machiavellian principles that have worked for 500 years, and each strategy gives the Sigma asymmetric advantage in psychological games that others don't even realize they're playing. Here's what you need to understand. The Sigma isn't born, they're made. These strategies can be learned. These patterns can be developed. If you're not naturally Sigma, you can still adopt these Machiavellian approaches strategically. Start with the strategy most relevant to your current situation. If you're too dependent on others' approval, work on independence. If you're too visible and becoming a target, practice strategic invisibility. If you're emotionally reactive, develop detachment. Master one strategy at a time. Practice it for 30 days. Notice how your results change. Notice how people respond to you differently. Notice how much power you gain simply by changing your approach. And if you are Sigma, understanding why these strategies work gives you even more precision in applying them. You're not just operating on instinct. You're consciously deploying 500-year-old principles that Machiavelli identified by watching power dynamics in Renaissance Italy. Same principles. Modern application, timeless results. The psychological game is always happening whether you're aware of it or not. Status competitions, power struggles, manipulation attempts, social hierarchies. Most people are playing unconsciously and losing. The Sigma has become conscious of the game and opted out of the parts that don't serve them while strategically engaging the parts that do. That's why they always win. Not because they're playing better, because they're playing differently. They've read the rules everyone else is following and decided those rules are stupid. So they wrote their own rules. And in a game where everyone else is following the standard playbook, the person with a different playbook has massive advantage. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. The Sigma understands this now. The question is whether you'll understand it and apply it, or keep playing the game the way you've been taught, wondering why you keep losing to people who seem to try less than you do. Master these 8 strategies. Build your independence. Operate invisibly. Detach emotionally. Engage selectively. Create parallel power. Observe constantly. Time your moves. Release outcome attachment. Do this and you'll win psychological games without appearing to play them. That's Machiavellian power strategies. That's why Sigma males win. And now you know exactly how. See you in the next one.